doing another red combination today. I've been doing a series in coloring with red copic markers and lots of different coloring combinations. We're doing the Santa. We're going to use R39, R29, and so he's really a good way to start out, or if you're unsure, he's a good one to start with. But what I'm doing first is I'm putting down R39 in the parts that I think is the darkest. And the artist gave us these lines telling us the light source is coming from this way because the shadows are all on this side of Santa. And I am now flicking in R29, which in my mind is like the quintessential Christmas red. Now this is R24. And then lastly, R14. And again, this image is really forgiving. The spaces are small, so it makes it slightly easier to blend. So that's another positive. And the artist has given us lots of information. So now I'm going to come back in and do these parts. This is R39. And this side of his coat's going to be pretty dark. There's a lot of little lines over there. And his beard's casting a shadow. If you are new to Copic, I do color my reds, especially dark to light. And the reason being is that it really helps with the paper getting oversaturated with alcohol. At least I have found. Now, sometimes I still have that problem, but coloring dark to light, you generally use less alcohol on the paper and generally things go okay. So this section here, so I'm going back in through here, I'm just blending out a little more. It looks a little rough to me. Hopefully trying to keep my hand out of the shot. That looks better. Okay. All right, so now we have, oh, I should have done the other part of his coat. So we have the bottom part of his coat. Oh, I forgot R39. So this should have been R39. Along the bottom of his little ruffle there. Fringe, what do they call that on a coat? Fluffy part of Santa's coat. And I'm working my way down through the colors, flicking in as we go. A little more. And then R14 is our last one. Not too bad. So now we have all of Santa's outfit colored. Now I'm going to do his face. His face is really tiny. I probably should have done this first. I try to usually do skin first, but in this case it's so tiny it doesn't matter. The reason I do skin first is this way you don't accidentally pick up another color and drag it into the face. That is really hard to recover from. You know, especially if it's like red and now you have a red, you know, line in the face. It's really hard. But in this case there is no real harm in that, and his face is really, really teeny tiny. While we're in this mode of coloring, I thought we would do his belt buckle so we don't pull in anything by accident. So I'm doing Y02, and I'm also going to do the star at the same time. And then I'm going to accent that with Y17. Y17 has a kind of a goldish tinge to it. It's kind of a nice thing, way to get your gold. It's a nice way to get gold with Copics. I am also going to add some glitter pen to the tree and the ornaments so that, you know, that'll glitter all on its own. So I am now going to do the black on his boots and his belt. And I chose W10, W8, and W6. I'm not sure what I did on my original, but this is a good black. I like warm grays because they have a little bit of a brown undertone to them. So they look, I think it kind of reminds me of what leather looks like when it's worn. Now, the artist has already drawn in kind of these lines to let us know that these are black and Santa's boots are obviously black, but you probably could have just colored them flat, meaning without any shading. So if you were making a bunch of Christmas cards, that's a great way to save on time. You could just color those all just flat black with a marker. There's no harm in that. And the best part about coloring and crafting is you get to make it as hard or as crazy as you want. You don't have to do as crazy as I want. That's what I tell my students all the time. I'm always looking for ways to add detail and little things here and there, but that's not necessarily what you have to do. You can say enough is enough whenever you're ready. We're in the warm grays. I think we should go ahead and add the shadow on the bottom. So this is W3. And I'm just going across and I'm going to blend that out with W1. I didn't want this to be this is not the focal point, right? We just wanted this to kind of blend in with the card. I realized I forgot the base on the tree, so let's do that. I'm going to do with W9. And I'm really just doing this because I don't want to add in any more color. I just kind of want that to be in the background. That's not the focal point of anything we're doing. So that's just going to sit in the background. And I also realized I forgot his belt loop on his pants. So we're going to come in here with just R29 and get that. All right, so now let's work on the tree. I'm going to use G28, G24, and G21. I turned my tree upside down because for me it was easier to visualize this way. The artist told us where it's darker. It's darker under each one of these boughs. I think that is the proper, is that what they are, boughs? Christmas muffin tops. I like that. Christmas muffin tops. Tell everybody, it's a thing. All right, so I'm flicking in G28. Now, I'm going to have to go through this process twice. G28 does not like to move on the paper. So we're going to have to convince it. So we're going to start with G24 and we're going to start pushing that down, and this is just adding alcohol, greasing the wheels, making it a little easier to move. I'm trying to dodge those ornaments the best I can. Okay, then I'm going to come down with G21. I'm still starting where I put the G28 and pushing G28 because it does not like to move. In some ways, I think G28 was a harder part of this card than the red. But that's why I chose this, because one, I think it's quintessential green for Christmas. It's pine tree green. But also because I want you to see that, you know, it's okay that it doesn't move right away. It's not you, it's the marker. Not all copics color evenly. I shouldn't say that. Not all copic markers work as easily as others. And now I'm just going back in and putting more G28. Now this is going to move a little easier. So now I'm going to start pushing it. You're going to see that the color is going to be darker. And that G24 is going to be able to move that G28 a little bit more easily. Pretty much have to do this every time I use this marker. It never just, you know, goes on real easily. You have to work for it. And I left a little bit of room for G21. G21 is really light, but this is going to give us our highlight. Still using it to push the color, but I wanted the edges of those branches to be the lightest, and this is going to give us that result. now we have a happy little Christmas tree at Santa's house. Look at that. Very nice. Now, in my original, I went through and colored all those ornaments in red and green. But then when I got done, I was like, you know what? It needed sparkle. And so then I went back with my gel pens and colored them with gel pens, and they looked pretty awesome. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that at the end. I'm going to do his fluff on his coat and his beard first, just to give the green time for the alcohol to evaporate before I put gel pen on top of it. So let's do the fluff first. Is so much fun, I think. It's one of my favorite things to color at winter. It's just because it's such a cool technique. So I'm going to take my E40 and I am going to flick in wherever I think the fluff is going to be the darkest, which is pretty much at the edges of Santa. And you want to be really careful you're not picking up red. Now, honestly, you could leave it like that and that would be cool, but we're not. We're just going to set our markers down, and while we set our markers down, I'm going to pick up C3, C1, and C0, and I am going to turn this again, and I'm going to do my best to keep my hands out of this. We're going to work on his beard. We always color hair in the direction it grows. You should never be coloring this way, just this way. And his nose is here, so I'm going to start flicking out kind of like a curve towards the point of his beard. And then I'm going to do the same on the way up. Like that. And he has a little bit of hair right here. Just going to put a couple dots of C3 on that. Very fine, very narrow flicks. Now we're going to come in with C1 and we're going to enhance those by adding more in that same direction. I don't even know if we need C0, but for good measure, because I did it on my original, so my note says. There we go. So now we have C1, and now we have a textured beard. Looks like we could run our fingers through Santa's beard. Just gives it a little bit of interest and definition. We can go back to our fluff. I just wanted that E40 to dry a little bit. I'm purposely not blending these because I want a textured look. So now I'm going to go with my E42 and I'm going to kind of put some medium, I wouldn't call them big, they're not small, dots in his fluff. And what you're doing is everywhere there's a dot is you're pushing that piece of fluff back. So you're making it textured. And I didn't want that E40 that was underneath it to kind of blend that out. So we just want little bits here and there. Again, I'm going to give this a second to dry. Let's take some red gel pen and let's decorate our tree real fast. I'm going to do all the stripes. And we'll do... All right, we might come back and use that. Let's, ooh, we have a gold. Let's put some gold in our star. And I didn't do the whole star. I just put a little bit along the shadow. Back here with green. Ooh, it's like a, I love it. It's, what's that? Spring green. And then maybe let's add a little blue, just to be fun. Sienna likes blue, right? Probably should have added more of the gold, but whatever, we're having fun. So there we have all of our little ornaments, and honestly, guys, I think that is the happiest little tree I've seen all day. E43, again, I'm going to try to keep my hand out of this shot, but I have to kind of hold the marker straight up and down because we don't want big flat, big, you know, big dots. We want real tiny dots. So I'm only using the tippy part of the nib to add in real little dots. And I will hold this up if I don't know how well. And I'm going to do less of them. and they should be spread out farther apart because we don't have the whole, Santa's outfit is not smashed. Everywhere we're putting a dot is where it's kind of recessed a little bit. And I think that right there is perfect. Let me hold it up and see what happens here. You see all that? See the shine? Little dots. There'll be a photo, a blog photo, and you know, a real photograph, and I think all the details show up better there anyway. So let's finish this up into a card. Let's get that started. Okay, so I have a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. So it's 8.5 this way and 5.5 this way. I'm going to have a sample of this, and I'll post it on my blog, I think, with the dimensions marked. Now, I've already embossed and stamped a background stamp on here just to expedite this process. But what I'm going to do is show you how I scored it. So what we're going to do here first is at 2 3/4, we're going to score this. At 4, we're going to score this. And then we're going to turn this, and then we're going to score at 2 3/4 down the whole center of this piece of cardstock. So you can see we have it down the center at 2 3/4, 2 3/4, 4 inches. I'm going to put from this corner to here, I'm going to put a score mark. So I'm lining it up here and lining it up here, and I'm not pushing hard. I'd rather do this 5 times than push through the paper. I'm just making a line from here to here. We'll reinforce that in a second. Now I'm going to go from this corner to this corner. Trying really hard, guys, to stay on camera. I'll take a picture of this so you can see where you need to score. Again, I'd rather do this 10 times, but now I have lines here. So what I'm going to do now is fold the crap out of this piece of paper and reinforce all of these over and over again in every direction. And then here, I'm just going to pick this up and do the same thing and pinch with my fingers. Pinch with my fingers, and do it the other way, pinch with my fingers, get a little finger workout here. And then one of the things I figured out was that if I can pinch, oops, and this is the hard, once you get it to do it once, it's a lot easier. So you're going to pinch both of these and then push this down. So you're going to get this weird little tent thing. And now you want to fold this way and reinforce that. And then as you fold this back, now you have your card base. Isn't that a fun little thing? So then go ahead and reinforce that shape. And you're training the paper. Once you get it trained, it's going to be a-okay. Oh, now I'm just going to take my little Santa dude that we made. And he gets glued right here on the corner or the front of this card. It's such an easy little fun fold. I shouldn't say easy. The first time you do it, you're like, you feel like you're failing at an origami class. But I promise that after you do it a couple times, it gets much, much easier and you'll get the feel for it. But work your paper so it doesn't fight you as much. Card sits up like this, and that's great, but it kind of bugged me, this part right here. So one of the things I've learned that I can do is take and put a smidgen of glue only on this side, and then you can close this. The card will still open, I promise. So we're just going to let that open up, and then I can still open the card and read what's in the card. But if you glue the back down, then you're kind of you can't get there. So don't glue the back down, but you can glue the front down, and I think that helps it stand a little prettier on your table this way versus it kind of flopping around. But at any rate, I love this. I hope you do too, and thanks for joining me for another card, guys. Bye.